YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and we got a 2-for-1 special in this video. We're going to break down the Zach Ertz trade that happened this morning. Zach Ertz traded from the Eagles to the Cardinals, and we're going to recap, give you my takeaways for the Thursday Night Football game that involved the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we're going to go over both. First, we'll start with the trade, quick breakdown and grades, my thoughts like we always do here. Always talking about the news first and my thoughts on Twitter, so you're missing out if you're not following that Twitter. Always keeping you guys involved with polls for Players of the Week. All NFL news talking during live games. So check it out. Link down below, comments section there, pinned. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Full NFL coverage here, all kinds of content. Recently did a trade deadline video, and I did predict Zach Ertz not only to get traded, not only for the 5th-round pick to be involved, for him to go to the Arizona Cardinals. I've done this so many times over the last year that I'm starting to surprise myself a little bit with this, but we'll see if we get any more. I feel pretty good about some of those in the trade deadline video. More trade deadline videos to come as we get closer, but check that video out. Went up pretty recently there, but make sure you check out that Twitter as well. So the trade, Cardinals get Zach Ertz, Eagles get a 2022 5th-round pick and Tay going. And why I predicted Zach Ertz to go to the Cardinals is because we talked about in that trade deadline video as well, but the Max Williams gets hurt, and they were starting to value the tight end position a little more, use the tight end a little more. It's obvious they're in win-now mode. I think everybody is going into the season, and it definitely was we were certain that the Cardinals were going into the season, but now that they're 5-0, the top of the NFL right now, okay, we're going for the Super Bowl. They can make a trade to win now. It makes a lot of sense. So, and the other teams that were kind of involved with Ertz in the offseason, I think we had the Patriots until they signed a couple tight ends. We had the Bills, and now Dawson Knox is going wild. The Colts, but they got a number of tight ends, and they probably shouldn't be trading picks at this point. So that kind of just left a few teams we talked about, and the Cardinals made the most sense to me. So they go and make the deal. Like I said, they were starting to use Max Williams a bit more, and he was looking pretty good. So it was unfortunate he got hurt, but you do get a pretty solid tight end in Zach Ertz. Eagles, they just played Ertz last night. A little risky because if he would have got hurt, they would have got nothing for him, and it probably would have drove the price down in terms of what he could have gotten a contract in the offseason, which would have been less of a compensatory pick for the Eagles, which would have been 2023 picks you potentially gain for losing free agents, that is. So they get a 5th-round pick. They get Tay Gowan, who is a cornerback from Central Florida. He was a JUCO player before Central Florida, looked good there, transferred over, and was very solid at Central Florida. So, you can't expect a whole lot with him there. I like his length, his traits, very athletic, obviously. But you can't, expect big things, but it's an upside player. He was just a rookie this year, so you get something there along with the 5th-round pick. So to grade it real quick, I think this is pretty straightforward. I gave the Eagles an A. I mean, you look at, where they're at in this season. I mean, there's still hope they can make a run for sure. I mean, that's for every team almost. But I don't know if Ertz is going to do that a whole lot of good. I mean, he sure could help him, I suppose. They do have Dallas Goedert, who was out last week, but and there's been talk about them trading Ertz for some time, mainly because they didn't want to extend him. It was clear they did not want to extend him, and he's going to be a free agent this offseason. So the first thing you want to say is they get something out of nothing, but then you remember you can get compensatory picks for losing free agents. Not for sure, but potentially. So I would estimate that, they would get a 5th or a 6th-round pick for Zach Ertz in terms of a compensatory pick, but that would be in 2023. So with this trade, they get a 5th-round pick in 2022. And like I said, there's a chance they can get a 6th-round pick compensatory, and that would be in 2023. So they get a 5th-round pick, pretty good value in my opinion. Right now, you also get a young corner with some upside on top of that, so you get something out of nothing here. What you would have lost and maybe got a decent compensatory pick in another year from now. So I think it makes sense. If the Eagles were looking great right now and I was confident with them in the playoffs, then this would be a bad trade because they could use Ertz. I don't think they would have done it if that was the case. So looking to add some more picks, maybe gearing up for another trade, maybe a big one, but I don't know if a 5th's going to go along with the one we're thinking of here. But yeah, I think you get 5th-round pick and a young player. Again, I'm not saying expect a whole bunch from that young player and take going, but I think it's pretty solid. There was talk that they wanted a 4th-round pick at one point. No one was giving that up. They end up with a 5th and a young corner. So I'll take that for the Eagles. And then the Cardinals, I gave it an A as well. Max Williams goes down. They need a tight end, and they trade for a pretty solid one. That doesn't automatically guarantee you a good grade here, but you look what the Cardinals are changing up a little bit. They're using a tight end more than they have in the past, kind of throwing teams off, have that game plan factor. And they were using Max Williams. Of course, he got hurt. He was looking pretty solid. But again, you get a solid corner in Zach Ertz. Williams actually had to, if you combine the tight ends with the receivers, he actually had the 3rd most snaps. He had more snaps than Christian Kirk. So think about that. So you add Ertz, I think you continue to throw teams off, use the tight end a little bit more than usual here. It's definitely a solid threat in the red zone. I think it could open things up for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. It can open things up for Murray to run a bit more too, because people will be focused on too many guys down there. So I think it helps the Cardinals. About $5.6 million. They'll have to pay him. So they'll be short on cap space now. I guess the only downside is, it feels like they need a corner. They traded a young one away. But it does, even though a guy like Byron Murphy's playing pretty well, it's no secret that that the Cardinals could use a corner. And they do have Marco Wilson as well. But I see the fans always asking, are they going after a corner? They got to look for this corner. They got to sign this corner. So we all know they could use one. So I guess that's the only downside. Can they still make that move? Is there, that's the question though. Is there even a move to be made? It's everyone's looking for corners. So I think Ertz helps them a lot. They're definitely in win now mode. It's probably a rental, but I'm okay with it. I'm definitely okay with it there. So the Cardinals get an A. The Eagles get an A. I think it's pretty straightforward. It helps both teams out here. It makes a lot of sense. Shouldn't be a surprise. I think it makes a lot of sense because I did kind of thought this would happen here. I did predict it to happen. But and then to last night's game here, it's weird kind of combining two videos. I just thought, why not here? Buccaneers win 28-22. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, and the Eagles kind of come back a little bit there and make things interesting. Kind of tough for those who bet on the Buccaneers -7. That was looking pretty damn good, and the Eagles come back. And how do you let them come back there? And the Eagles go for 2 and get it, and the Buccaneers end the game very near the goal line. So that's a tough one. I like the Bucs -7. It's a tough one. Anyone else did out there as well. So that's was something I was a little salty about. But Leonard Fournette, looked like a tank out there. The Eagles struggled to tackle him. You see, that was a negative I thought from the Eagles. There was some poor effort plays, I thought, in tackling. It's kind of like, let me just wrap him up high. Somebody will help me out. And like, no. So a lot of missed tackles, a lot of broken tackles for Leonard Fournette. Fournette controlled the clock in this game. That's the thing. They controlled the clock, and that was great. Maybe a little bit too much. Maybe take a little bit more shots, but then you remember, Brady did hurt his hand. Maybe they didn't want to have him throw. I mean, he threw the ball a lot, but, towards the end, like, overdo it. But Antonio Brown had a pretty good game as well. It's been fantastic for them, Hasn't lost any speed, quickness, flying around the field. Routes are looking crisp. Vita Vea continues to look like maybe the best nose tackle in football. I think we got the best nose tackles in football here on both sides. Vita Vea and Javon Hargrave. These guys they're really playing like potential defensive players of the year. I mean, these guys are absolute studs. Vita Vea is something. I mean, that's a pure nose tackle. You're talking about pure, stop the run first, but also can collapse a pocket type nose tackle. I mean, that is the guy. That's the guy right there. He's an absolute beast. And a big reason Eagles didn't really want to run the ball. Too many screens for the Buccaneers. I could say the same thing for the Eagles. Too many screens. But the Buccaneers, when Fournette's running extremely well, and they did run the ball a lot to him, but there was moments, a 4th and 2 or short yards where you think that, they just run the ball to Fournette or just throw it, have Brady throw intermediate pass or maybe even downfield, and they kind of do it. They throw a screen. There was a poorly designed one earlier in the game, and they've been running screens a lot this year. Usually I like the screens down by the red zone. They're very effective, I'd say, for the Bucs and well designed. So for the most part, I like them. But in this game, it just felt like it got out of hand. There was one that was poorly designed early. They kind of fake an end around. I believe it was Antonio Brown. They fake an end around to Antonio Brown. The whole defense shifts over because they think he might be getting the ball. Brady rolls the opposite way, but throws it back to Antonio Brown while the defense is still already over there. That's a poor decision, poor design, in my opinion. You fooled the defense. You had them all on one side, so I don't know. we'll wonder if Brady could have decided. I don't think so. I think that was the play design there. So somebody didn't like, they let him come back, but the defense is pretty bad because it's beat up. Richard Sherman added to the injury report now. He's going to miss a couple weeks with a hamstring injury. Hamstrings are always tricky because they feel okay when you're walking around, but as soon as you start running, sprinting, jumping, not all the time cutting. It's only just like a kind of a burst, sprinting or jumping. Then you kind of just mess it up again, and you can't really tell when it's good to go. So Richard Sherman, he's not old, but he's kind of he's up there in age. That's tough. So let's hope. I heard 2 weeks. Let's hope it's that. They do have a little bit extra break because this game was on a Thursday. So that's tough. For them. And then in Eagles there, Ertz as a runner it's the same thing as last week pretty much. He struggled to pass the ball, throw the ball, and then kind of clutched up as a runner at the end. It was the same thing as last week here. Really did well as a runner. Miles Sanders, when he got his opportunity, he kind of got them back with these explosive runs here down the stretch. So that was big for them. And it's crazy though because it got them back in the game, but every time you run, you always have to run clock, and it was odd that they decided to go to it when they needed clock, and they won't run when you should run early, and they run, and ultimately the run did work at the end, but you did waste some time while doing it, which always comes with the run. So it's just interesting, and that's why I put up coaching, play calling up there, just to refusing to run. I will say that the Buccaneers have a very good run defense. Teams are trying to stack the box on early downs against the Eagles because they're worried because Ertz can run, Miles Sanders can run. They're worried about the read option, and Ertz isn't really making anyone, fearing him in terms of a passer. So it is a little bit tough to call plays with this situation, but at the end of the day, you can't run one time in the first half, and the screen passes are kind of getting out of hand. So I think they managed the clock pretty poorly too. They called a timeout in third down there, at the end when the Bucs were at midfield. And the only reason to do that, I still don't even do it, but the only reason to do it is to get your defense ready, get it because you know something about what the Bucs are doing. If you really don't know, then there's no point in calling a timeout, because it's just a shot in the dark anyways. So they called that timeout. Bucs get a big gain. They get down in the red zone. The Eagles then needed their 3 timeouts. There's really no positive of calling that timeout there because if they do stop them, you can call the timeout on fourth down so they can punt instead of rolling the clock, So then you can use your timeout. So that was a big time mistake as well. So a lot of coaching mistakes. We talked about tackling was a problem for them. And, that's Eagles fought back. It looked like a really bad game. The Buccaneers were going to dominate them, and it was interesting. The Bucs kind of let them back, and then Eagles. It was almost the same thing as last week. A lot of similarities last week with against the Panthers. There, they did come back and win. So, the Eagles. The Buccaneers are a really good team, and the Eagles actually they ended up having somewhat of a shot in this one, and they come back and beat the Panthers last week. As sloppy. And at times it looks like a disaster, as they are, with the play calling, coaching decisions, and Ertz struggling to, throw down. He's off target. He's off target on a lot of balls downfield. There was supposed to be a back shoulder Devontae Smith. He threw it way inside. Smith had to kind of save that one. I will say there was the interception deep to Quez Watkins. Announcers were kind of blaming Ertz for that being overthrown. It looked overthrown. I don't know if that was overthrown, though. Watkins jumped. That was poor job by him. He jumped way too early, which gave him an easy interception. Not the best throw, maybe slightly overthrown. But what I didn't like was, him throwing off his back foot. There's times when you kind of have to throw off your back foot or awkwardly on the run, cross body. And there's quarterbacks that can do that when they absolutely have to. The Justin Herberts, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, etc., Rodgers, Brady, whatever. There's guys that can do that when they have to, and then there's guys that can't do that and are doing it when they don't have to, and that's kind of hurts sometimes, in that situation. So I don't know if the throw is that off target. It was just kind of the unnecessarily just throwing off the back foot and just launching it. So he didn't have a good game as a passer, but him struggling as a passer play calling, coaching, all this going bad, defense not playing well, missing tackles. You know, they need better players out there. Still at the linebacker position mainly, maybe more guys in the secondary. I think the linebacker position mainly. You know, all of that, and they're still, you know, they come back and beat the Panthers, and they come back and put up a fight with the defending Super Bowl champs. It's a good team. You know, my point is they could still kind of win games even with, you know, some messy situations going on. So, you know, I guess if you clean it up, you know, they can be possibly a dangerous team, but I think a lot needs to be cleaned up at the same time. But there's other teams that would have, you know, if they had, you know, this sloppiness going on, they'd be getting killed out there. And it did look like for a little bit the Eagles would be, were, and it would finish that way. But yeah, that's so you kind of look at that both ways there. So we'll see. They get the long break here. And as another thing I wanted to mention, I already wish I mentioned it. Kind of think things as I'm recording here. Again, graded the Cardinals an A for the beginning of the video, early in the video for the Zach Ertz trade. Another thing I wanted to mention, you know, on a Thursday, on a Friday after they played on Thursday, they trade for him. So you can't play this week. Obviously, you can't play twice in 1 week for two different teams. Be wild. But he can get the playbook and start learning with the Cardinals right now on a Friday instead of, you know, we wake up Monday or Tuesday and he's got to go play on the next Sunday, you know, so he gets that extra break. So that also goes into why it's just kind of good timing here, but it's a good trade for the Cardinals. And we graded the Eagles an A as well, if you saw that earlier in this video. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Let me know your guys' thoughts on either the trade or the game last night. Excited for Sunday. A lot of really good games. A lot of key injuries we're seeing, though, all of a sudden pop up. That Browns-Cardinals game, speaking of the Cardinals, I've changed my mind so many times in that game, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Nick Chubb out, but some key guys out for the Cardinals, which they've been overly, you know, for the most part, healthy this year. So, I don't know. It's going to be wild. We'll have you covered during these games live on Twitter, but we got all the content you can think of for the NFL right here on the Goat House channel. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on me. Much appreciated. That is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.